welcome back everyone. Today's video is called Your Silence. You wanted more one-shots, so here we are. You wanted more TsukiYamaKageHina, so here we are. And you wanted more videos with some of the Haikyuu characters having autism, which makes no sense because in literally all of my videos, Kenma and Kageyama are autistic because that's just my headcanon for them. I'm just trying to treat it as though it's normal because it is. It sucks, but it is. Hey, and by the way, I'm saying this as an autistic person, so 100% valid. No, but obviously everyone can have the headcanons they want to have. These are mine. Live with it if you consume my content. Otherwise, don't consume my content. And now I hope you enjoy. I have no idea what this intro was. Tell me if you liked it. Have you ever had struggles finding good Haikyuu merch or anime merch in general? Because I for sure did. It can be hard. But this shop offers amazing merch. Like, I'm literally obsessed with the Haikyuu merch. They have the cutest hoodies ever. Now, if you want to get 10% off, click the link in the description. They offer me a collaboration, which is literally amazing. And you support my channel this way. So, win-win. Let's go. The sound of raindrops against the train windows was omnipresent, despite being much quieter than the noises deriving from the train itself. Kageyama focused on them. The little droplets hitting the exterior created a calming rhythm. He had to focus on them as the world around him became overwhelming. Even through closed eyes, he could see the lights flicker occasionally and shift depending on the environment they were driving past. The people around him were quiet. Most were equally as exhausted as he was after a long day of work. And yet, their presence alone put strain on him. He didn't have enough energy to handle even that much. And so he shut himself out, solely focusing on the soothing rain and the voice that would announce his station. He clutched his bag tightly when the time came to step off the train, his heart suddenly picking up speed, and he felt as though the room around him was shrinking. It was unavoidable to brush the people around him in passing in the crowded station, even though he tried to avoid them. Every bit of touch, even through layers of clothes, felt like sharp needles being poked into his flesh to his oversensitive skin. He rushed to get out, but with that, the world around him seemed to pick up pace as well. More people, more faces, and more information brushed past him in quick succession, and it was too much. His vision blurred at the edges, and he set his mind to one goal, the exit. Outside, he was greeted by the same rain he had previously appreciated as a distraction. Now the little drops hit his skin similarly painful as the fleeting touches he couldn't avoid. He didn't care. He had an umbrella somewhere in his bag, but just the thought of loosening his grip or change the rigid position he had set his muscles in made a horrible itch creep up his spine, and he'd rather endure getting a little drenched. He didn't care. Sunshine wouldn't have been better at the moment. It was all equally overwhelming to his tired brain. He just focused on breathing and pushing forward. The door shut behind him, and for the blink of an eye, the time it took to take in a deep, relieving breath, it was silent. His heartbeat slowed and he closed his eyes, quietly approaching the cliff that was his inner turmoil. Emotions so wild they equated to a tidal wave, and yet he stood before it as if frozen in time, and then Kageyama! Hinata hurried around the corner, excited, and took a rushed breath to keep on talking and stopped. It was almost comical how he froze mid-movement before hesitantly letting his arms fall to his side. His whole energy shifted from the overwhelming flash of lightning, driven and charged with infinite amounts of energy, to a more mellow, soft warmth that Kageyama beyond doubt equated with home. It was like a sunset in early fall, when the sun still had the power to warm the skin, although the world around it had long begun turning cold. It was solace after a storm. It was home. Kageyama took another deep breath, and suddenly the overwhelming, towering tidal wave he saw himself confronted with shrunk. His mind no longer overcome by a threatening onslaught of emotions, but a storming sea within. Still not calm, but more manageable from afar. Hinata didn't say anything for a long moment as Kageyama took a moment to calm himself upon arriving home. Wordlessly he reached out to take Kageyama's bag while he took off his shoes and jacket that had done little to shield him from the rain. The ginger must have noticed, because he returned with a set of dry, fresh pajamas and a hoodie, which Kageyama gladly accepted and changed into before he even stepped inside further. Changing wasn't comfortable. He wanted to stay in his rigid position and move as little as possible, but he knew he had to get out of his wet clothes, and once the warm, soft fabric of the shirt sat comfortably in place over his skin, and he could hug his arms around himself as before, it felt better. His clothes, not sticking to his skin, felt better. Logically, he knew he had to endure these little moments of even worse discomfort to feel more comfortable afterwards, like taking the train and walking through the rain to get home, where he had the familiar environment he so desperately craved at the moment. But it still cost him effort and energy to cross these bridges. Just now, he finally stepped out of the Genkan and into the hallway, but not further, unsure on how to proceed. His muscles were tense, his body slumped a little, and his hands had balled into fists while his toes curled. He was uncomfortable. Extremely so. It had been a while since the sensory issues had gotten this bad. He had to constantly remind himself to take deep breaths and not panic over the onslaught of sensations. Hinata returned. Kageyama hadn't even noticed that he had left again, only now realizing that his wet clothes were missing as well. He must have taken them. It's that bad? He nodded slowly, glad that he didn't have to explain himself. Whenever it got like this, his mouth felt odd, and speaking made it worse. Like the words had some sort of uncomfortable texture on his tongue he neither could nor wanted to put a name to. Alright, wanna go upstairs already? I could bring you dinner to eat there. He thought about it for a moment, his eyes dropping to his hands when he noticed that Hinata hadn't just given him a random hoodie. It was one of his communication hoodies, with yes and no embroidered on the sleeves, and as he knew, pictures of rocks depicting different emotions on the front. The setter felt suddenly overwhelmed at the realization, but still simply lifted the sleeve with no written on it. He reached out a hand to the small spiker who watched him carefully and a little confused but accepted the gesture nonetheless. Kageyama held his hand experimentally, feeling whether the touch was okay at the moment before pulling him into his arms fully as he found that it was comforting. He hit against Hinata's neck to block out any other sensations around them and breathed in his soothing scent. Oh. Hinata made a small noise of understanding and wrapped his arms around him in return. After a couple of seconds, he tried coaxing the toddler to the couch, which the raven commented with a wounded sound akin to a whine. Come on, let's at least sit down first. Otherwise, I won't be able to stay still. He took a couple of deep breaths before he was ready to follow his lead. Another small thing he had to do before he could be more comfortable. It was just a brief moment, but he still felt his heartbeat rising as he was met with the bright light shining from the kitchen and the new noises and sensory input. When they sat down, he immediately pulled Hinata close again and hid against him and the couch, making himself otherwise as small as possible. Hinata proved again that he knew him better than Kageyama ever dared to hope when he reached out to pull the hood of his hoodie over his head, effectively blocking out even more of the light around him. Here you go. They sat like that for a moment in which Kageyama's focus, his entire world, consisted solely of Hinata. Shoyo has... Yamaguchi stopped himself, similarly to the way Hinata did as he saw them curled up on the couch together. His eyes were drawn to Kageyama's hunched-over figure and the hoodie he was wearing, and immediately understanding dawned on his face. He gave a small smile to Hinata and turned back to the kitchen where Tsukishima had just finished seasoning their dinner. And is Tobio home? I swear I heard the door open. But it's... He looks exhausted. I think it's a bad day. The blonde stopped and Yamaguchi saw the concern crossing over his face. His eyes wandered to the living room automatically, but he stopped himself from going there right away. Sho is with him. It was so little, and yet so much said. In short, Yamaguchi understood and acknowledged his concern, but he didn't need to worry, and Tsukishima nodded. They finished setting up the meal, and by the time the table was set, Tsukishima approached the couch, leaning over the back a little off to the side not to scare Kageyama or overwhelm him with being suddenly too close. Dinner is ready. Hinata gave him a soft smile before gently untangling himself from Kageyama's embrace. He still held his hands when Tsukishima asked, before he got the chance. Tobio, do you think you'll be able to eat something right now? He waited until the raven slowly shook his head, now hugging his arms around himself tightly instead of holding on to another. The blonde nodded slowly and watched as Hinata got up to sit down next to Yamaguchi at the table. Alright, I will set a plate aside for you. You can join anytime you like, or go if it gets too much here. The first few times this happened, Kageyama's apathy, and more significantly his refusal to eat, had concerned him more than he had been able to express. It still did to some degree, but now he knew that this was more or less simply a matter of the setter being overwhelmed. There was no deeper underlying issue aside from the way his brain was and always had been wired a little differently. In the same way Hinata needed a certain amount of exercise each day to feel happy and good, and in the same way Yamaguchi needed a little extra reassurance at times, or in the same way that he sometimes needed to be alone to sort his thoughts. Kageyama would eat when he felt better, and he would feel better the sooner he got the chance to recover. All he could do at the moment was trust that a setter would communicate his needs effectively. Kageyama didn't join them for dinner, but he didn't leave either. By the time they were finished, he still sat in the same spot, but to Tsukishima's relief, the tension on his shoulders seemed to have eased a bit, and he didn't seem to need to hide away anymore as badly. They hadn't made concrete plans for the evening yet, but considering the turn of events, they could easily adjust whatever ideas they had to match the situation. Besides, they profit from going to bed on time for once. Hey, Tobio? I'm tired. Do you want to go to bed with me? Tsukishima knew that wasn't entirely true. Yamaguchi was, from all of them, the most of a night owl, the polar opposite of Hinata. Kageyama nodded slowly, and Yamaguchi smiled. If it gets too much or helps in any way, you could also sleep in the other bedroom if you like. The other bedroom was one of the smarter decisions they made when finally buying a house. With 4 people in a relationship, with sometimes vastly different sleep schedules and needs, such as for closeness or space, it was nice to have options. May that be that they slept in pairs on occasion, or that one of them preferred to sleep alone for a night. It wasn't about tension or fights. Tsukishima saw it as a strength that they were able to accommodate each other's needs, and a sign of trust not to interpret anything into the actions, and that if a problem arose, it would be addressed directly instead of trying to make a point through vague or passive-aggressive actions. But Kageyama denied Yamaguchi's idea and followed him upstairs as they fell into their evening routines easily. Meanwhile, Hinata finished cleaning the dishes while Tsukishima wiped on the table. Do you think something happened? With Tobio, I mean. Do you know, trigger this? I don't know. Could be that he's just exhausted or frustrated because he missed one too many serves. The 2 of you aren't exactly known for being kind to yourselves when it's about volleyball. Hinata made a non-committal sound instead of protesting as Tsukishima had expected. He sighed, reading the spiker's worry in his silence, and put the cloth aside in favor of wrapping his arms around the smaller. Don't worry too much. He pressed a kiss to his forehead and basked in the closeness for a bit. I trust he will tell us if something happened. More likely than not, it was just a bad day. I don't like when he gets bad days. Tsukishima nodded his head in sympathy. Me neither. I don't like when you get bad days either, or Tadashi for that matter. If I could, I'd make sure you're safe and sound all the time. Hinata leaned up and pulled him down by his collar to kiss him again, and then smiled against his lips. You can be so soft. A chuckle, mixing with a small noise of defiance, resonated in Tsukishima's chest. Only for you. It had meant to sound like protest, but came out resonating as a promise, and Hinata's smile brightened. Come on, let's give our grumpy cat some cuddles. Tsukishima laughed at the nickname and followed suit. That'd be okay. He was sure of it. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you may, or if you don't like it, also leave a comment and tell me what I can do better. Yes, but we only accept constructive criticism here, okay? No hate. And yes, subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any future content. And tell me what you thought of this headcanon, and if you never had sensory issues, be glad they suck. Personal experience. Hate them so much. Who I don't hate, however, are my nerdy neckos. You guys are the best. You keep this channel going. Thank you so much for supporting me. Everyone else who's not a nerdy neko yet, check out the join button of this video or my other social media. Even better, the Discord. It's a super chill, cool community. You should totally come check it out. And yeah, have a great and wonderful day, and here are more videos.
Some food in you. Step 3, you grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.